Steve Rattner, I'm looking through these numbers, and here is a contrast that is striking. Job participation, the number of people looking for jobs, fell last month, while job openings soared to historic heights. Explain those two things. Less people looking for jobs last month, despite the fact that job openings are at historic highs.
Well, Joe, you gave me a great lead into my charts. We had a decent jobs number on Friday. Not quite what people hoped for, but better certainly than April. But the really interesting news is what you just pointed to, which has to do with labor force participation and job openings. And so what's been happening in this economy, and what you can see in this chart on the left-hand side, is that people looking for work, job seekers, gradually rose before the pandemic, and then, as you would expect, it plummeted. And then, as you would also expect, it began to come back. But what was probably less logical or less expected was that it then stagnated, bounced up and down a little bit, and that red circle with the little line down is what you just alluded to, which is that the number of adult Americans looking for jobs actually fell by a little bit last month. And then you contrast that with the chart on the right, which are job openings. And you can see, again, a pattern you'd expect. The economy was doing OK. Job openings were reasonably high. Economy falls off a cliff. Job openings plummet. Economy starts to reopen. Job openings come back. And now they have soared to over 8.5 million. That is an all-time record number of job openings in this country. And so the conundrum, obviously.
Steve, how do you explain that? How do you explain that less people are looking for jobs while we have record job openings?
Well, there are a variety of explanations, Joe, and like everything that goes on these days, it seems to become somewhat politicized. One explanation is the effect of the $300 a week of extra unemployment insurance that many Americans are getting. Other people say that there are child care issues, there are public health issues. Some baby boomer types have decided simply to retire from the labor force, leave the labor force, depressing the size of the labor force. This is going to be a fruitful study for economists for a very long time. But let me show you what the impact of all that is starting to be on wages. So this looks at just blue-collar wages in leisure and hospitality among our lowest paid professions. And you can see that it was on a trend line to continue to go up from about $14.50 to $15 an hour right before the pandemic. And then you can see a dotted kind of extrapolation of where it would have gone in a normal world. Then the pandemic hits. Not surprisingly, wages fall. Businesses lay off a lot of people, hire fewer people, hire at lower prices, or they simply cut pay. So wages bounce along the bottom, and then you have this phenomenon of a lot of job openings and not so many people looking for the jobs, and so it's forced business to raise their wages. And now you're in a situation where for a hotel worker, for a bar worker, for a restaurant worker, not all of them obviously, but on average, they are now receiving wages of about $16 an hour, just under $16 an hour, which is above where they would have been in all likelihood had the economy just stayed on present course and speed. And the big question is, will business try to pass these costs along? This is great for workers. Let's not kid ourselves. Great for workers. This is what we want to see happen for workers. But it does add to costs for business. And will business pass these costs along, or will they absorb them? And one other interesting phenomenon I want to show you on the politics of all this, because it's pretty amazing. So this map shows every state based on who the governor is, whether the governor is a Republican or a Democrat. And in every state in which a Republican is the governor, except for Massachusetts and Vermont, and we can argue about how Republican those states are anyway, every single Republican state except those two has decided to eliminate the extra unemployment benefits before the early September expiration. Every blue state, blue governor, blue state, has not decided to do that. In other words, is keeping the $300 a week until it expires, at least for now, in early September. So this is like many things in life today. This has not become a matter of economic policy. It's a matter of almost become political philosophy. And when it's all over, we're going to find out how much of an effect these higher unemployment benefits had on jobs versus all the other things that are going on in the economy, Joe.
Exactly. And Dorothy Brown, I'm curious, and when we look at the reason behind these trends, there is debate, and it does get political, but is it possible that many of the reasons are true at the same time.
Well, first I want to say, yes, there are workers who are making higher money, but so are CEOs. That's the chart we also could be talking about, right? Significant pay increases during a pandemic. While they're cutting staff, CEO pay has increased. Then I can talk about the Pew Research study that showed about 2/3 of unemployed Americans are thinking about what they want to do going forward. Do they want to go back to the job they had? Is the job they had even available for them to go back to? Or do they want to re-examine their field and their occupation? And 2/3 said they did. So we talk about a 5.8% unemployment rate, but it's 9.1% for Black Americans and 7.3% for Hispanic Americans. 1.8 million fewer women in the workforce and 7.5 million overall fewer jobs. So this economy is not back for everyone. And what a lot of workers have seen during the pandemic is the employer they thought they were working for is not necessarily their employer, right? They worked from home, but they were surveilled. They had employers checking up on them, and you didn't necessarily think that was the kind of employee you worked for. So yes, it makes sense for people to say, you know what? I don't think I want to go back there.
Steve Rattner, let's talk about the Biden administration. We showed that chart of the Republican governors letting the benefits expire early, the unemployment benefits expire early. The Biden administration seemed to send a signal last week that it was not overly concerned if Republican governors let that $300 extra benefit expire early. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Do they believe that that will move more people into the workforce and make employment numbers go even higher?
I think if you read through a little bit between the lines, but not a lot, in what President Biden's been saying, he did say a month or so ago, after the last jobs report came out and was disappointing, that in order to receive unemployment insurance, every American should be looking for a job. That's a provision that's not always enforced, and it wasn't enforced at all during the pandemic. And so it was, I think, a signal that the president is saying that people can't simply decide they're unemployed and out of the workforce. They have to be looking for a job in order to get the unemployment insurance. So that's a positive thing. And I do suspect, although they haven't really said it, quite frankly, that the Biden administration is aware that the difference in how these states behaved is what could well affect levels of employment. And I do think, look, anecdotally, I talk to businessmen all day, every day, pretty much. And to a person, they will tell you it is really hard to find people, and they're having to cut back on some of their sales and production because of that. And to the point that was made a second ago, it does appear that people are being more choosy about what jobs they take. There was a survey I saw the other day that something like half the people who are looking for a job want a job that allows remote work. Well, obviously, half the country can't be working remotely, unfortunately. So I think the pandemic has, for at least the moment, somewhat altered people's views about work and about whether they want to go back to work and whether they feel any pressing need to go back and work. And yes, I do think the $300 a week, plus the stimulus checks, plus certain other benefits, have played a role in all that.
Professor Brown, it's Jonathan Lemire. Over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen secured commitments from the other members of the G7 about the 15% minimum tax. Of course, now, though, it gets that much harder if such a thing is going to happen in Congress to sign off on it, too. Could you just speak about the ramifications, about what this deal means, both globally, but also the path ahead for putting it in place here at home and what it could mean domestically?
Well, I think a minimum tax is critical to preventing tax havens and preventing American companies from evading and avoiding income tax, paying their, I would say, their fair share. And I think President Biden, I think securing this abroad is obviously 100 times easier than securing it at home, right? We don't see a lot of support, certainly not bipartisan support. And I don't know if in the Senate there are 50 Democrats that would support it, but the minimum tax is critical to stem the bleeding of our tax dollars escaping our borders.